Welcome to Theology Thursday. Today I just want to look at one verse, but I want to talk about the ramifications and different ways it's understood and what the verse is actually really teaching us. So one of the major questions that has needed to be answered by every culture and is addressed oftentimes in the Bible is the relationship between men and women, husbands and wives. And so different societies have handled that differently historically. Even people today have different ideas about the way homes ought to be run, or the way churches should be run. Might not be the right word, but the way they should operate, the way churches should operate. And so there are really three broad views, even though most people don't claim to be view number one. The first view is that men run everything because women are morons. And they're basically dictators. They're dictators in the church, they're dictators in the home, they're dictators in society. And women have no place except just basically in the kitchen and the nursery sort of mentality. You see this in Afghanistan with the Taliban. There's no reason to even send a girl to school because all she's going to do is be a wife and a mom. She doesn't need to read or anything. That's not important. Men are the only ones that are important. So that's kind of an extreme, if that's a position. There's some people, nobody that I've ever met actually says out loud that's what they believe. But I have seen some men that in the way they talk about females, the way they treat their own spouse and daughters, is that females are just not very bright. They really don't have much use other than just being a wife and a mom, and let men will take care of everything. I don't believe that's biblical at all. I can't find any Bible evidence for that, and so I don't hold to that position. On the other end are those that think that men and women are identical, that they're identical. There are no differences, and there are people in our society that are trying to push that. Now, the Bible clearly says that's not the case, and with our own eyes, I think obviously we can see that that's not the case. You put men and women on a level playing field in sports, and the men are going to win every time because of their physical superiority. You put men and women among a group of people to try to understand and keep people together. Women are better at connections and all those kind of things. I mean, they're just things that men and women are better at, and they're different, and that's fine. Matter of fact, during World War II, only women were allowed to pack the parachutes for pilots because women naturally are better at fine motor tasks with their fingers. They have better dexterity. And so because of the serious nature of properly packing a parachute, only women are allowed to do that because they're better at it. And so, the idea that somehow we're identical just doesn't match up scientifically or scripturally. So those are the two extremes. Women are pretty much useless, or men and women are identical, and neither one of those is biblical. So there's a middle view that says men and women are different, and those differences work together, but we're not completely different. We're the same but different. And so there's sort of a scale that slides along between how alike are we and how different are we, and what does that mean, and how does all that work out? So within that, there are basically two kind of sides of that line. There's the egalitarian side, and there's the complementarian side. The egalitarian side says that men and women are different, and there are differences between them, and that's okay. But those differences are only in terms of, like physical makeup. Women obviously can bear children, men cannot. Men are obviously usually physically stronger than women. Women shave their legs, men shave their face, that sort of thing. And so there are some, distinctions there. But when it comes to function, there is no distinction. There's no particular order in who's supposed to lead. Women can do anything men can do. You'll hear it kind of that line that there's no distinction. On the other side, complementarians agree that there are differences. Women have babies, men are physically stronger, that sort of thing. And that there are also to be some differences in functions. that there are some roles that God assigns specifically to men, and there are some roles that God assigns specifically to women. And that doesn't mean that they're not equal in ways as well. Now, I say all that because each side has a few verses that they really like to hang on. There's like their signature verse. Now, I'm complementarian. I believe that men and women are different, and I do believe that there are different roles that are laid down for each within that. And I'm not going to take this whole time to go through all that. Instead, I want to look at a verse. I think it's important because it's for those that think that women and men can all do all the same thing. Women can be pastors or whatever it is. In Galatians 3:28 says there's neither Jew nor Greek, there's neither slave nor free, there's no male and female, for you're all one in Christ Jesus. And so you see, God doesn't make any distinction between Jews or Greeks, Gentiles. God doesn't make any distinction between slave or free. God doesn't make any distinction between male or female. So there are no roles that women are excluded from. There are no roles that men would be excluded from. Like they can, it's all kind of blurred there together. And even though there are some physical differences between men and women, that's about the only distinction that we have. And so that's where they take this verse. So I just want to talk about this verse because I think it's important, even for those of us that believe that men and women have different roles and functions, not just different biology, in order to complement one another. So what does he mean when we say there's not Jew or Greek or slave or free or male or female? We need to go back a few verses to see. So back in verse 23, he said, now before faith came, we were held captive under the law, imprisoned until the coming faith will be revealed. It's reference to Jesus. So then, the law was our guardian until Christ came, in order that we might be justified by faith. But now that faith has come, we're no longer under a guardian. For in Christ Jesus, you're all sons of God through faith, for as many of you as were baptized into Christ have put on Christ. So here's what he's saying. Before Jesus came, you had the descendants of Abraham. They had the law. The Gentiles were without. But now that Christ has come, there's no obeying the law to show that you're a descendant of Abraham. Like justification comes by faith. This is what he's driving at, is that we're saved by faith. So there's neither Jew nor Greek. So the way that you are in Christ is that you have put your faith in Jesus. It's not that you're Jewish, so therefore you're in, or you're Gentile, therefore you're out. There is, I believe, and that's it. There's no distinction. It's not, slaves are the only ones that can be saved because we used to be slaves in Egypt and were delivered by God following Moses. Or there's no there's no distinctions that, no matter who you are, whether you're a Jewish slave female, or you're Gentile free male, or any other combination you want to come up with, a Gentile slave male or a Jewish free female, you can mix and match those combinations any way you want to. Doesn't make any difference. Okay. Everyone is saved the same way. This verse has nothing to do with roles or responsibilities or functions or behavior in the church. What it's saying is that in the church, everyone, no matter who they are, is saved the same way, and that's by faith in Jesus. Now you go, well, we don't really have Jew and Gentile and slave and free. No, but let's think about this. It doesn't matter if you are a fifth generation family, like your great-great-grandparents were believers, and your great-grandparents were believers, and your grandparents were believers, and your parents are believers, and you don't inherit that. They inherited this being a Jew, but we don't inherit any of that. You're saved by your faith, not because of how great your family lineage is. And if you come out of a hellhole, your family's been nothing but criminals and drug addicts and, just nothing but a mess, and you're the first person in your family that's ever put their faith in Jesus, you're saved because you put your faith in Jesus, just like the person that has this pristine Christian lineage. And if the person with the pristine lineage doesn't put their faith in Jesus, they're not going to heaven. Your family tree doesn't matter. All that matters is whether or not you have put your faith in Jesus. That's what he's saying. And the same with the slave and the free. I know we don't do slave and free like they did in biblical times, But we do have white collar and blue collar and business owners. And it doesn't matter whether you're military or non-military. It doesn't matter whether you're blue collar or white collar. It doesn't matter whether you work by salary or you work on the clock. It doesn't matter whether you work from home or you go to an office. It doesn't matter if you wear a uniform to work or if you wear dress clothes to work or you wear just shorts and flip-flops to work. It doesn't matter if you have set hours to work or if you have a flexible schedule. None of that matters. Okay? Your position in society doesn't matter. All that matters is, have you put your faith in Jesus? So whatever your position, if your position's here and someone else is here, or they're like this, or they're way over here, or they're crossways, or where, it doesn't matter. Everyone, no matter where they are in society, so one thing that really matters, and that is to put your faith in Jesus. Your societal standing, your economic standing, your social standing doesn't matter. Everyone is the same. When it comes to salvation, you have to put your faith in Jesus. So then it comes to the third set. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. So you don't go to heaven because you're a man. You don't go to heaven because you're a woman. You go to heaven because you put your faith in Jesus. And that's what he's saying. That's why in verse 29 it says, and if you are Christ's, then you are Abraham's offspring, heirs according to promise. So if you're a Gentile, you're still an heir of the promises that were made to Abraham if you belong to Jesus Christ. If you're an heir of him. And so this is a great verse because what it tells us is there are different levels in society. There are different ethnic backgrounds, Jews and Gentiles to use theirs, but different ethnicities. There are different genders too, and they're both listed here. There are lots of differences that all of us have. But when it comes to salvation, it's a level playing field for everyone. No distinctions are made. Actually, there is. There's one distinction that's made when it comes to salvation. You put your faith in Jesus or you haven't. If you put your faith in Jesus, no matter all that other stuff, you're in. If you've not put your faith in Jesus, no matter the rest of that stuff, you're out. So I don't care how wealthy you are. I don't care about your social status. I don't care about, if you haven't put your faith in Jesus, you're not going to go to heaven. It doesn't matter how bad your past is, how bad your family line is. It doesn't matter who you are. If you put your faith in Jesus, man, you are headed to heaven. And so this is a great verse, but it doesn't just eliminate all of those distinctions. You could still be a Jewish free man even after you're saved. But your salvation is the same as the Gentile slave woman. And that's what the Apostle Paul is getting at. And it's just a great message that all the things we use to divide people up, God does not. God uses just this criteria. Do you belong to Jesus? And so this is a great verse because it means that we can present the good news of Jesus to anyone, because anyone, no matter any of this stuff, can be saved as long as they put their faith in Jesus Christ. So if you belong to him, rejoice. Your salvation is the same as everyone else's. It's in Christ. And you are him, and you now are an heir with Abraham, just like everyone else that has put their faith in Jesus. So if this brings you some hope and the confidence that you can share the message of Jesus with anybody, because everybody needs it, whether they're Jew or Gentile, whether they're slave or free, or whether they are male and female. So God bless you, and I hope you have a great day.